Hi, this is Buffy Nalen, your host this week for Über das Meer, the podcast about all things German. Über das Meer is produced in conjunction with Boise State University German Club. This week our topic is finding money for foreign exchange. Last year, I was fortunate enough to spend 5 months in Germany on foreign exchange. I had to borrow some money to go, but most of my trip abroad was free thanks to a really big grant that I got called the Gilman Grant. I talked recently with Corrine Henke, the coordinator of education abroad for Boise State, about what students need to do to win the coveted prize.
We sort of define it as inbound and outbound, and so I am like sort of the outbound person. So all the students who want to study away, I coordinate all that. I have a colleague who's the inbound, who works with all the international degree-seeking students. So I help students basically study on exchange. We have exchanges overseas, we have exchanges in the U.S. I also do faculty teaching abroad. I coordinate scholarships. What else do I do? Right now we're coordinating a grant. Those are the main things. We're starting to do more with faculty-led, like faculty taking a group abroad, so I coordinate that as well.
Oh, and that's new, I'm not familiar with
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's basically a faculty member would submit a proposal of what they want to do, and they're basically going to teach a class with a group of students. Like we have a professor in graphic design who teaches it's called Design in Japan, and it's a special topics course, and then they go to Japan for 2 weeks and they visit different design companies and design institutions. They stay with a homestay family. They just go all over, and so
that's really
cool.
We're
doing more with that as well. So
wow, that's cool.
So I help students just sort of logistics, keep them in status at the university, help them maybe decide between programs, just figure out how to pay for it, kind of whatever they need.
In fact, that was going to be my next question. So I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but for the people that have not been privy to that conversation, will you talk a little bit about how you help students decide on what would be a really good program for them?
It's a lot of, it's really, I don't think I do as much as I help the student kind of figure out what their interests are. We talk, it's a lot of asking questions, kind of, well, what kind of environment do you want to be in? Have you ever taken a language? Do you need major classes? And so I sort of guide them to programs, and sometimes they'll say, well, I really want to go to Sydney. I was like, great, we've got options in Sydney, but also, too, did you know if you go with this USAC program in Melbourne, you can also get your major and it's $3,000 cheaper. So I just sort of lay out the choices. I mean, the students make the decision, but I kind of say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Or they say, well, I want to study Spanish, and I want to go to Spain. It's like, okay, you got 4 sites in Spain. So I do sort of, students make the decision, but I kind of help them figure out what might meet their academic needs, what meet their budget, what will count for their major with the classes and things like that.
And along those lines, then what kind of challenges do you find?
Every student is different. I mean, some students, sometimes it's hard to have too many choices. Like we have a study abroad fair every year, and I've actually found that that's a little too overwhelming. It's like some students just want the USAC book, but that doesn't work for everyone, so we like to have choices. So students, and I think for students, the biggest thing I think with students is they don't necessarily have an academic advisor, and what we do is so important with academic advising. I spend a lot of time, and I'm not an academic advisor, but I spend a lot of time helping them sort of figure out their major, sending them back for academic advising because they want to do this, but they don't. Because when I was a student, I was like, oh yeah, I want to go abroad, but I didn't really care about the credits. So I think, but that's an important part. You may as well be earning credit. It may as well be counting somewhere. So I think that's the biggest struggle students have is understanding their degree requirements, having an academic advisor, and the university on the whole is working on that, trying to get people to meet with advisors. So I think that's the biggest thing is sending people back to academic advising. It's like, oh yeah, well then I can do my I can do a little bit of advising, but I can do my whole Spanish degree abroad, which they didn't realize. So
it's useful information to know. In fact, you talked about some of the factors in deciding. Talk a little bit more about that, because I know for me, when I went abroad, really it was all about money more than anything else. But obviously that's not the only consideration. Does it matter, for example, how far a student is in their education as to what kind of program they want, or is it really all about the money? I mean, what do you think are some of the really, really major factors that would say, yes, I'm going to go abroad, or no, I'm not?
I would say, yeah, money and timing, or Or just the ability to do it, because I think for people in Idaho, like maybe they've never been abroad, or some people have never left Idaho. There's people who've never been on a plane, and so for me to say, hey, you want to go abroad? That's why it's nice that we also have the National Student Exchange, because it's just in the U.S. and you can do that. You know, it kind of feels a little more safe. So I would say, you know, just for some people, it's just that concept of, yeah, I can do this. I can go abroad. If their parents have never, you know, if they're a first-generation college student, then we say, hey, you want to go abroad too? It's like, whoa, I'm already doing more than my family ever did. So I think the idea that they can do it, the money is a part of it,